Michael Jackson had been the guest of Paul McCartney, invited by Paul McCartney to come on the ranch. He didn't know where it was located. He had been on the ranch for a short few hours when suddenly Bill Bone, the owner of the ranch, kicked everybody off the ranch, including Michael Jackson. Paul McCartney decided to shoot a video and a film at the ranch as the guest of Bill Bone without the prior permission or clearance of Bill Bone. And when the ranch manager called Bill Bone in Palm Springs to tell him that Paul McCartney was filming and filming crews had come aboard and that Michael Jackson had arrived and they were doing a video, he arranged for everybody to be kicked off the ranch. So they were all kicked off the ranch. Filming crews, other stars, Paul McCartney himself, and Michael Jackson. But Michael Jackson couldn't remember where this ranch was, except it was somewhere in Santa Barbara County, and it was green. And he loved the English Tudor. It was a two-story English Tudor mansion consisting of 14,000 square feet of the most beautifully designed English Tudor I've ever seen in my life. No two rooms are alike. The furnishings were $3.5 million worth of furnishings, imported from all over the world, including the Louvre Museum in Paris, France. Mr. Bone and his wife and other decorators and designers had designed this house. Mr. Bone dreamt the original design. He promised his wife when they attended Stanford University he was going to build her an English Tudor mansion. And he sketched it out and told her, when I become a builder and one of the first things I'm going to do is build you this fabulous mansion for you and our children. And he did. He kept all his promises. And he became the builder of the decade, Bill Bone, and did in fact, he found this ideal site that backs up to the Los Padres National Forest in Los Olivos, a sanctuary that the backyard consists of the Los Padres National Forest, and there's no other ranches in close proximity to it. It's an ideal, isolated location. It had 5 other residences on it, and Bill Bone built the English Tudor mansion, the recreation house, a 10,000 square foot recreation house with a wine cellar, a 180-foot swimming pool, a 6.5 acre man-made lake, and barns and corrals, offices. It had 10 car garages for cars, and it had its own private airplane landing and helicopter landing. They had a runway for airplanes to land at the ranch as well as helicopters. And of course tennis courts and other entertainment for children. Mr. Bone kept his promises, and the reason for sale of the ranch was Mr. Bone's wife was divorcing him, and he had to sell the ranch. He didn't list it with any broker. I found it through the Chamber of Commerce in Santa Barbara. I asked about a large ranch I had heard about in the area, and they helped me more or less pinpoint where it was in Los Olivos, off Highway 154 on Figueroa Mountain Canyon Road. So it was a thrill for me to find this ranch because it was like finding a needle in a haystack. And you know, I can tell you there's gold up there in them there hills, but I know there's gold in them there hills, but where is the gold, you know? So I was very lucky to find it, and I took Michael Jackson to it. I showed him other ranches, and he knew this was the ranch he was looking for. He decided to buy it immediately, and then there was, of course, everything had to be turned over to John Branca and Frank DeLeo, who, of course, had other plans for Michael Jackson to buy a different ranch they had purchased. And Michael knew exactly what he wanted, and he knew he could trust me, and that I would not try to prevent him from getting what he wanted. I facilitated it. I made offers and counter offers. Mr. Bone had the ranch listed at $35 million, and he wanted a registration, and he wanted tax returns and proof of evidence that the person approaching to buy this ranch had the money with which to buy it. And he wanted their tax returns and full disclosure as to their identity. And Michael Jackson didn't want anyone to know that he was buying the ranch, because usually prices go up or double, or also it's told to the media and then it appears on television and radio and in the news. He didn't want to be in the news about the purchase of the ranch, because he was moving from Encino to this area to save his animals from being impounded by the Animal Regulation Department, and to find an ideal paradise for himself and his animals, and to create this paradise for children that he wanted, that he always dreamt of doing for children. So with that in mind, I had to keep it a secret, not let anybody know. But in spite of all that, I was successful, because Michael Jackson kept me as his broker, even though other brokers were after him and other people were trying to interfere in the transaction. And so everybody was trying to cash in on Michael Jackson except me, and I had known him since he was 12 years old, and I had been to the estate. I knew his parents, I knew his family, and my son used to play with Randy Jackson at the estate, Will Berlin. He used to go hide from the tutors at the Jackson estate. I hired tutors for him. So and I had to go retrieve him from the Jacksons. That's how I met Catherine Jackson. My son was hiding behind a bush, and I asked Catherine, "Hi, I'm looking for my son." She says, "Don't tell him I told you. He's hiding behind that bush over there." It was so cute. And so I got him and took him back up the hill to work with the mathematics teacher. So anyway, that's how I got connected to the Jackson family, through my son, trying to avoid the tutors and running over with Randy to play with Randy at the Jackson estate. And you know, I saw them grow up. I met every Jackson, Ruby, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, Jackie, everybody. LaToya, Janet. Janet was 3 or 4 years old when I met her. She was a tiny little thing. And I saw her grow up, and then she had a huge Winston, almost as big as she was. A Winston dog, that she ran around with, this dog that was almost as tall as her. She had a Winston. I never saw a dog like that before. Anyway, I really thoroughly enjoyed my relationship with the Jacksons in Encino, and I love Catherine. Catherine and I are the same age. We just recently turned 80. And I ran into her at the bank, and someone loaned her my book from a bank officer. We bank at the same bank. And she came in, and I was sitting there, and she screamed, and she started waving my book at me and saying, "Oh, this is really the way my son was," the way I wrote the book. And that was the greatest compliment ever paid to me as a writer. The mother of Michael Jackson telling me that she loves my book, and this is really the way her son was. And she also told me that Michael Jackson lost the ability to sleep, and that's why he hired Dr. Conrad Murray to give him this medication that killed him.